I don't want to have that work environment where you're afraid to leave something on your desk because another salesperson might steal it from you. We don't have that here. We were coming home from class one time and we got hit by a drunk driver. I was 18 years old, broke both my arms. The driver got the worst of it. There was 3 of us in the vehicle and a friend of mine hurt his back. Well, Lucky said, no problem. Take your time and recover. Your jobs will be safe. They'll be here waiting for you. Well, 8 weeks later, the jobs weren't there waiting for us.
Welcome to Jobbers, American Energy, the podcast that tells the untold stories of the people powering America. I'm your host, Jason Case, and each month we go beyond headlines to meet the folks keeping our country running, one job at a time. Let's get into it. Ron Perkins, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Oh, happy to do it.
I think there's a lot that not only that I could learn, but the rest of the team could learn. So I do want to go through your background because you worked in the industry a long time for a lot of different jobbers. But before we do that, I like to ask some fun questions, just get the brain fired up.
Sure.
Okay. Ron Perkins, are you a morning person or a night owl?
You know, it's a little bit of both. It kind of depends on what's needed.
Yeah.
I'm good staying up to get things finished, but getting up early has just become a way of life anymore.
Understood.
Yeah, AM is the normal day.
All right. Well, this plays into the next question. What's your favorite type of workout?
More strength than cardio. Cardio does me a lot of good, but I don't have the gas tank I used to. Strength I'm okay with, but the cardio works me. So as much as I don't like it, that's probably more what I need.
Do you prefer to work out in the morning or at night? Like, do you like getting up and getting after it, or it just kind of depends on your schedule?
I used to, but I've been working out in the afternoons and it does seem to work better. Maybe I'm just more awake.
All right. What's your favorite type of comfort food?
Oh boy, pasta.
Good man.
You can feed me gnocchi all day long and I'm a happy camper.
You can't go wrong with that.
Right.
All right, last one. What's your favorite TV show or movie?
So my wife is going to laugh about this because I always watch this whenever we take a trip. I've got it saved. It's called Tequila Sunrise.
Okay.
It's a movie back from the early 80s and it has Michelle Pfeiffer, Mel Gibson, and Kurt Russell. All young, all kind of at the beginning of their career, but kind of peaking at their careers.
Yeah.
It's just a great movie. You'll have to watch it. It's kind of
What's the premise?
So Mel Gibson is a former drug dealer that's trying to go legit. He's in love with Michelle Pfeiffer, who runs a restaurant, and Kurt Russell is a detective for the sheriff's department. And Kurt Russell and Mel Gibson grew up together. So they're friends. And Kurt Russell's always tried to not try to arrest his friend.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where
he's either got to go legit or he's going to have to. Okay.
It's got Raul Julia in it before he passed. It's just, I recommend it to anybody. It's a very entertaining movie. Kind of a sleeper. Nobody really watched it.
I've never seen it, but you and I definitely have similar movie tastes, particularly in comedies. Yeah. So I'll definitely give it a look.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of everything, but I enjoyed it a lot.
How's home life?
I'm very fortunate for multiple reasons, but my wife has always been very supportive of me, but she also grew up in the industry. Her dad was a Chevron salesman that moved into his own jobbership. They had card locks and she worked with that company as well. So she's got the oil or the petroleum in her blood, just like I do. But, aside from that, she's just a very good person and really good with people. And she's been a great resource to me and taught me a lot, taught me about being humility and being humble, but also about how I can work with people and work better with people. It's really made a big difference in my career, having somebody like that to bounce things off of, and that's always in my corner. Just
speaking for myself, wonderful woman. I love it when she stops by, brings food and says hi at the office. I know Chrissy and I get a big kick out of, whenever anybody's family wants to stop by. They don't have to stop by. They don't work here. But when they care enough to come by and check things out, we want to make sure that your life here is good, but your life outside of work is also good. So I'm glad that you have a good counterpart. I'm also glad that she comes from petroleum roots because she gets it. It's a unique industry.
It really is. And, and she's a big reason our kids all turned out as great as they did too. She's been wonderful with them. It hasn't been easy. It never is, but
yeah,
she's been a great parent, to my children, her children, which is our children, but she's always been, supportive and been a good listening point for me and just wonderful.
That's a consistent theme apparently on this podcast, family, business, and family. And I remind everybody, in my opinion, the nuclear family is very important. You got to have mom and you got to have dad. I mean, It's how God designed it. And I think it's the most effective way to parent, because there are elements of parenting that, my wife is just far more natural at. And there are elements of parenting where I think I can be a lot more supportive, or where she needs me. And it's not just, like, hey, you're the one that goes to work and I'm the one that covers down at home. It's not that black and white, right? Like, she helps me in work and I help her in home. And then together we're a really powerful team. I really think that, kids benefit from that when they're raised, with two parents that love them and are looking out for them. They end up being good, productive citizens and, members of our society, which is ultimately what you want.
They learn that balance, and you got to have that balance at home too.
I just want to kick it off by giving your background so people understand how long you've worked in the industry and how much you've done for the industry. But to start, 2nd of May, 2025, Ron Perkins, you were born in Garden Grove, California. You've had over 35 years of experience in the oil industry. Growing up, your mom was a nurse, and your father actually worked on an ambulance in Watts before transitioning to highway patrolman.
Correct.
That's a rough area.
It was a rough area.
I got a buddy who he had a long journey to join the LA Fire Department, so he actually was a paramedic around that area, and he's got wild stories. I mean,
my dad had a ton of stories, and he says there are 12 black babies with the name either Ron or Perkins in their name that he delivered.
Really?
Yeah.
Just total coincidence? Like, he's in the process of delivering and it's got one aspect of his son's name?
Right. Well, that's what the mom said, that, they were so grateful for him delivering the baby.
They actually named it.
They were going to include that in the name.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot nicer story than my buddy told me. He's told me a handful of stories. One of them, guys whacked out on whatever, climbing up street lamps, and I'd get to the top and swan dive off.
Head there.
And he's the guy that, kind of shows up to help clean everything up. So it's a rough area. Kudos to your dad for getting through that. So did he transferred out into the Highway Patrol of California?
He was trying to get on with LAPD, and it took about 7 years of trying different departments before he finally got accepted into the Highway Patrol Academy. So
good for him.
And that was probably the better move for him.
I could see why. Yeah.
It turned out to be it was actually a great career for him. He medically retired and was very disappointed that he had to leave the job because he really enjoyed what he did.
Yeah, I know some CHP guys, and they did the full 20 plus, loved it, weren't really itching to retire. They actually enjoyed the work quite a bit. So good for him. All right, back to the oil industry. So you started your journey in the oil industry at a small petroleum distributor in the late 1980s called C.O. Thompson Petroleum. You worked in operations, fuel side, lubricant side, ended up transitioning into sales. You actually worked at another jobber, Downs Energy, which is also based in California, and you started there in the 91. And then in the early 2000s, you had a short stint with Beck Oil in Victorville, California. Then you worked at the Jankovic Company, another jobber in Paramount, California, before you eventually cracked into big oil and joined the Circle K team.
Right.
And you held the position as dealer business manager from 2014 to 2020. And then in 2020, you actually joined ROC as the director of our sales team. And congratulations on your 5-year anniversary, by the way.
Best move I've made.
Most importantly, you're a father. You got 2 children, happily married man.
Actually, I have four great kids.
4 kids. Any grandkids?
One grandchild. He's
nice.
Will be coming up on 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah.
That's so
first
fun.
Grandchild, and very, very, very happy.
What's the difference between being a dad and a granddad?
Well, everybody says that you could send the grandkids home, but we haven't had that experience yet. He's still too young to come see us. So hard to say, but it's funny because it's hard for me to remember my kids being that small. I guess it's been so long,
Yeah.
I remember a lot of memories with them, but being so tiny, the infant is, it's kind of fun to be at that stage again.
It's also wild. Like, I obviously don't know what it's like, but you have kids, little kids, you're raising them to be adults, and then to see them go through the process of becoming a parent's got to be kind of interesting.
It is. And I got to say, I have 4 great kids. Jenny and I are really blessed. All of our kids are doing really well. Each one is unique and each one is doing very good in life. We couldn't be, more blessed, truly.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on that. So tell us a little bit about what is it like growing up in California with your family and how you ended up actually moving into the oil industry.
Well, growing up, we lived, and this is kind of a funny story. I tell everybody this, but we lived 3 miles from Disneyland. So we used to watch the Disneyland fireworks from my parents' driveway. And as soon as the fireworks were over, which is about 9:15, my dad say, okay, now get your ass into bed. So that was always our big deal.
Yeah.
But growing up in Southern California, it was great. In the 80s, the weather was always great in Southern California. I used to go to a lot of concerts. It seemed to be like the epicenter for music. You either had Los Angeles or there's all these music venues that you could go to. So when I was in my late teens, we would go to concerts, almost every weekend. Just whatever was playing, we'd get tickets for it and you could go and it would be a blast.
That's awesome. Did you see people, as you were growing up, going to the concerts, did you start to see people working in jobberships? I mean, how did you end up navigating your way into your first job in the oil industry?
Another funny story. So I actually started working in a train store when I was 11 years old. We're going back a bit.
Okay.
So I worked there for all through high school almost. And then towards the end of high school, the train store happened to be right next to a Lucky's Market, which was now owned by Albertsons.
Yeah.
So I had, always going over to Albertsons. I got to know the people there and I finally got hired on as a courtesy clerk is what they called us. Box boy, bagging up groceries, things like that. And we got to our point, myself and two others in our careers where we were ready to progress to become checkers. And at that time you had to go to a checking school in order to become
like a trade school.
Yeah. It was just a night class that you took.
Yeah.
And we were coming home from class one time. And we got hit by a drunk driver.
How old were you?
I was 18 years old.
Jeez.
Broke both my arms. The driver got the worst of it. There was 3 of us in the vehicle, and a friend of mine hurt his back. Well, Lucky said, no problem. Take your time and recover. Your jobs will be safe. They'll be here waiting for you. Well, 8 weeks later, the jobs weren't there waiting for us. But my friend that had hurt his back was going to a chiropractor and met this girl that was a professional water ski racer, and she had hurt her hip. So she was also going to a chiropractor. Her dad happened to work for this small petroleum distributor, and they were looking for somebody to work in the yard. So I went and interviewed, and I got the job. And the gentleman's name was Rick Viscardo, probably one of my first mentors. Rick was great. He was not only their sales director, but he was their head of personnel. Before you had an HR department, you had a personnel department. So Rick hired me in, but he also kind of took me under his wing. Ended up taking myself and a friend of mine out to Lake Havasu, taught us how to water ski. He had a great personality. He was a born salesman and kind of gave me a glimpse as to what sales was like, but also got me a good start in the petroleum industry. C.O. Thompson had 3 different facilities. They had the main one in the city of Orange. Then they had one in South in San Diego and one in Riverside. And I was there for a couple of years. And I kind of started to see the writing on the wall. Things weren't going well. The company wasn't doing good. I think there was probably a lot of hands in the pie. And so I left and went and did demolition with a friend of mine for a couple of years. But shortly after I left, they went bankrupt. And then all the creditors came in and they took the property. And now that property is actually part of the 5 freeway. It's not even there anymore.
Okay.
But I was doing demolition for a couple of years, and I got a call from one of the gentlemen who used to work at the Riverside facility. He says, hey, I'm out in Corona working for this family distributorship. They're looking for somebody to work in the warehouse. If you're interested, give them a call. So I called them up. A week later, I went and interviewed with Mike Downs and got the job at Downs Oil. I was there for 17 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Downs got a great reputation. Obviously, he's
solid people, family owned business. Mike's mom and dad were still very heavily involved in the business at that time. Started working in the warehouse, worked a lot with Mike, a lot with his dad. Good mentors, great people. They had a solid business and very much a family business. I can remember coming in, we would come in early, like at 6 a.m, and we would manually cut out statements and put them in a trifold and then send them off. That was how we did billing. It was once a month, we'd all get together and do that.
Old school.
Very old school.
Yeah.
But again, kind of cut my teeth in the industry there. Went from the warehouse into a driving position, rolled into dispatch, and I did dispatch for 8 or 9 years. Really enjoyed it. Dennis Clark came into my life.
Shout out to Dennis Clark.
Yes. So Downs had several card locks, but they had one main card lock, which was kind of affectionately known in the industry as the Golden Goose. This card lock would do 7 loads of diesel a day in a 24-hour period, 50,000 gallons of diesel.
Jeez.
So you could imagine how many people were trying to sell us fuel. Dennis was one of those people. Also got to know Mark Lytle. Bought a lot of fuel from Mark at Pro Petroleum. But again, they both kind of influenced me. And, Dennis actually left 76, did a short stint with Arco, and then came over to Downs as a sales manager. And again, I was still dispatching, but Dennis was going, you need to work into sales. I'm like, no, I'm not good. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at talking to people. I'm happy where I'm at. And he kept after me. He said, Ron, you'd be so good in sales. I'm like, oh, Dennis, this isn't for me. Well, they made me go into sales, and I moved to the dark side. And honestly, it's been a very good move for my career.
I'm glad you mentioned that Downs card lock. Downs has some of the nicest card locks still to this day.
Absolutely.
I mean, phenomenally run organization and great people. So if you're doing business with them, keep doing business with them because they're solid people, great reputation. And then you meet Dennis Clark, absolute character. Love that guy. Mark Lytle, rest in peace to Mark. He was a mentor of mine. We knew him personally very, very well. He's taught us both a lot. And then you end up going from yard guy. Did you do the CDL route and driving, or were you like, okay, so CDL driver, then you get into dispatching, and now you're in sales. Is that scary when you take that leap? I think a lot of people have an impression of sales that maybe they create too big of a monster around that transition, right? Like that you're going to walk in to talk to a potential customer and they're going to beat you over the head and throw you out the door. It doesn't necessarily always work out great, but I don't think it's that problematic.
There was some apprehensive because, the other jobs, you went to work, you knew what you were going to do for 8 hours a day. Sales is a little more unpredictable. It requires you to be organized and have a little more responsibility. You have to set appointments, follow up on appointments. So there's a lot more to it that I didn't realize until I got into it. But it's very enjoyable. You get to go out and talk to a lot of people, meet a lot of different people, learn about what's important to them, what they're doing. And then eventually, if all goes well, you get to work with them.
So did you start off marketing fuel? Were you involved in the lubricant side of the business?
Everything. Yeah.
Everything?
Yeah. Fuel, sales.
If they had a SKU, you were selling it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Racing fuel, card lock, lubricants. DEF wasn't around back then, but we sold a lot of chemicals.
Did you have to build up your business, like focus on biz dev, or did they have like some, legacy customers that they felt like, hey, Ron would do really well serving these customers and driving new business?
Dennis maybe a little account list of people that he knew in the industry. And when I was dispatching, because Downs was such a small company, I not only dispatched, but I watched all the card locks inventories. So I would set up the dispatching, our trucks to fill those card locks up. So I was very heavily involved with the fuel side, not only buying it, but then inventorying the card lock and dispatching the trucks, also dispatching the bobtails as well and having to account for that fuel.
Yeah.
So, which also included some inventory deals. So you kind of wore multiple hats there, but I had a very good understanding of the fuel industry at that time and somewhat of the lubes as well. We were a Chevron jobber for years, and then Chevron wanted everybody to become a super jobber, and we just didn't have that kind of volume. So actually, Dennis got us involved with ConocoPhillips and went to a few of their training classes. So I had some background in the lubricant side as well. But fuels was definitely the specialty, and that would kind of get your foot in the door. And then you'd say, well, what are you guys doing for your lubricants?
Gotcha.
We also sell that as well.
Okay. You mentioned super jobbers. So for those people that aren't familiar, there are some majors out there that kind of either they've flirted with this model or they've stuck to the model, like Exxon Mobil, where you effectively, you kind of adopt the Pepsi Coca-Cola distribution model where you have these, super distributors. And you might have, 30 or 40 in the entire country, and they control that market. And they can work with other small companies as like sub-jobbers, whereas other majors might have, multiple distributors in one locale, both selling Phillips product or Chevron product. So they were transitioning their business model for distribution, and you guys ended up with another major. Is that how that ended up? Okay.
Right.
So as you're, kind of evolving in your sales role, eventually you get to crack into big oil yourself. I mean, you ended up transitioning to Circle K, company with over 130,000 global employees, massive company. What was it like going from family run oil businesses, to jumping in the deep end? Like what went into that decision for you?
It was a time to transition away from the position that I was at Yankovich. Things were not going well. And the opportunity came up to go to work for Circle K. And I thought, big oil. I've never worked for big oil before. Let's give it a shot. I had a very good mentor there that was just a great guy. I thought the world of him, taught me a lot about the retail world. And I had gotten a little bit of the retail industry when I worked for Beck Oil. Beck Oil had, at that time, 23 retail stations.
Yeah.
And they hired me in to manage those stations, try and grow that business. So I'd gotten my feet wet in that before. And Circle K was looking for somebody with a little bit of experience. And that was me. So I thought, cool, finally hit the big time, right? Well, the nice thing about family-run organizations is you can make decisions very quickly and on the fly. And you guys do a great job of that. You know, when I bring something to you, we talk about it and you say, done, sign it off, and we've got it in place that day or the next day.
Yep.
Circle K, things have to run through multiple hands. And that's any organization that's a corporation is going to be that way. But it takes a lot of time to get things done, and it's very hard. And if management changes, you start back at stage one and have to present all over to the new management again. So,
okay. So a lot of red tape, which, you know, it's not surprising when you have, you know, over 100,000 employees. You can't be making decisions in a hallway the way we can here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like
for business model.
Yeah. And then also with big companies, management turnover. So how much of that did you experience in your, you know, you were there for over half a decade. Did you see a lot of management turnover where it's like, hey, who's my boss today?
3 different managers while I was there. The first one was fantastic. He was a legacy mobile guy that had come over, retired from mobile, and got hired on by Circle K when Circle K bought the mobile distributorship for retail fuel.
Okay.
Great guy, very well trained, had multiple positions. Mobile had a really neat model is they would keep you in a position for about 3 years, and then they would move you to a different role. So he had done credit, he'd done real estate, he'd done my job as a dealer business manager. He'd had all these positions. So all this resource that I could pull from to learn from. And he was fantastic to work with and work for.
Yeah. And I think that's the positive side of working at, you know, big corporation, big oils, that training's really good. Like the amount of resources that you know are available to you are immense. So you can meet some great people, you can learn some good things, definitely, you know, expand your network. But, you know, typically that red tape and a lot of that management turnover, I think is what ultimately, you know, frustrates people to a point where they're like, hey, you know, I might be looking for something different. This was great training, but I'm going to move on to greener pastures.
Absolutely.
It sounds like that's where you were when we initially started to have conversations about, hey, you know, if you're interested in coming back to family business. And that was around 2020.
Yeah. I got a call shortly before Christmas from Mark Lytle. And I said, oh my gosh, I haven't heard this name in years. And he says, oh, I wasn't even sure if this number still worked. But he says, hey, I've got some friends that have this great little company and they're looking for somebody in the Inland Empire. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, sure. I'll talk to them. He said, well, they're not quite ready yet, but when the time comes, we'll give you a call. And it was probably 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And then he reached out again. And then I met you and Christy, and it's just been great ever since.
And so on the back end, behind the scenes on our end of it, you know, obviously we worked really closely with Mark. We sold our C-store assets, you know, companies kind of going through a transition where, you know, wholesale became this, you know, secondary peripheral part of the business to the primary part of the business. You don't have those retail assets anymore. And we were going through definitely a transition, and we had to mature as a company, at least on the wholesale side. So I remember the first time Mark Lytle talked to Christy and I, he described you as a California cowboy. He's like, oh, I got the perfect guy to lead your guys' sales team. He's a California cowboy. And then obviously he gives us the background that you just provided. We're like, man, this guy sounds great. But I remember Christy and I talked about it, and we're like, not yet. Like, if you find somebody good, you know, somebody that can join the team, you know, hopefully be with you for the long term, first impressions are important, and making sure that your house is in order and it's ready to bring talent like that into it. And I felt like we had about 6 to 12 months of getting some things in order before we feel comfortable, you know, to at least have that conversation to see if it worked out. I'm glad that it worked out. I'd love to say that we were, you know, our house was entirely in order and we were mature and everything was ready to go. But you came in at a time where we were still in that transition process, and you definitely elevated our game and built an amazing team under you. So I just want to take the moment to say thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you. And I'm glad you brought me in when you did, because it was fun to kind of help grow and see your vision and kind of work towards getting us there.
It wasn't easy. And it's scary too, because when you get, you know, guys like you, guys like Dave, guys like Matt, you know, ladies like Lauren and Marlis, and, you know, the greater team, you never want to scare somebody away, particularly if you feel like they're going to be a good cultural fit and they're going to bring a lot of value to the organization. So I would say that if you do have an opportunity to go out there and grab a killer to get them on the team, just be careful about the timing of that, right? Like, don't be so, in a rush to where you make this like urgent decision, because if you're not ready to receive that person into your organization, it can not work out. So I'm glad that the timing worked out on our end. So let's talk a little bit about your tenure here at Rebel. You've organized the sales team, and I think that you've brought in a lot of fundamentals in, but the people in the team are probably, I think, the most important asset that we have.
100%.
When you're onboarding a new sales guy, whether they're new into sales or whether they've had 20 years of, oil, fuel sales experience, what are you focusing on when a new person joins the team?
I'm looking at how they interact with me, what their background is, kind of what they know, what they don't know. You don't want to have to train somebody out of something. And I'm looking for, for lack of a better word, kind of diversity. When I started, we had basically 3 people in our sales team. And I always wanted to have a lady on our sales team too. I think there's a place that women can get to in our industry that some men wouldn't be able to. And I think the ladies can bring so much to the table. And the ladies that we have on board do bring so much to the table. We're fortunate to have them. But gosh, boy, really just a sense of openness, a willingness to learn, and being ready to learn, I would say.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that we've implemented, and it was actually due to a shortfall on my part, we had hired, a director of operations in our northern region. And I remember we were on a call, and, he had been promoted from a management level. So he was now kind of taking over the entire territory. And Paul Brown asked me if I felt like I had properly and adequately onboarded him and trained him for his new role. And I said, yep, absolutely. I think I've done a phenomenal job at that. And he goes, okay, one of the things I do is when I'm onboarding a new team member, I put together a 90-day career, success tracker. So where you're essentially saying for the first 3 months of this role, week 1, we're going to accomplish these things. Week 2, 30, 60, 90 days. And it's not everything that the role encompasses, but you're trying to highlight the foundational elements of what is going to lead to that person being successful in that role. And when he brought that out, I was like, man, that actually is a far better version of what I think I did. So we implemented that. And I think we've been doing that with the sales team now for some years. And I personally feel that it's beneficial. Have you seen that to be impactful for bringing new members in?
Absolutely. It's a great tool to use. There's so many things that need to be learned. Not only, product knowledge. Yeah, that's a big part of it. But it's just, culture, company culture, speaking with people, different ways of handling things, and all that. If you can just keep all that to where you're making sure you're not missing any of that. And then roll them out into the field and get some training doing that. And each salesperson is unique, and they have to find their own way of doing things. But the more exposure they have to that, the better. And that 90-day success tracker, you really don't miss any steps.
In my experience, usually it takes about 6 months whether someone's going to work out in that role. And, talking with Paul Brown, we're like, can we cut that in half? Can we decide within 90 days whether this person's going to be a great long-term fit culturally with the organization, probably the most important element, but also be able to perform the role and meet the expectations of the role. So what I've seen as we've implemented that is we've actually cut that time frame down from the 6 months of, we don't know if this person's going to work out or not, or we don't know whether or not, we work out for them. Now within 90 days, we know if it's a good fit. Like if it's an issue of, time, energy, resources, training, we can get to all that in the first 90 days. And then it's like, okay, it's not a process issue. It's not a resource issue. It's not a training issue. You've been provided the tools. Maybe it's not a good fit. And that within the first 3 months, and then you can, separate, go different ways if it doesn't work out, or, boom, this person has a good foundation. They're going to be successful individually. But as a sales team, because I've run into this at other companies, some sales teams are very toxic. There's a lot of infighting. You could have territorial disputes. You could have account level disputes. I feel like we don't have any of that here. And I really think it's due to your leadership, because you're not that type of guy. You definitely want to share the love. And you also want people to be successful. You want them to be the best version of themselves. It shows because there's really little to no drama. And oftentimes you have more than one salesperson or saleswoman that's out there supporting each other, because they know that, like, hey, if this guy comes, I'm going to have a higher likelihood of success. And they team up and they go out there to take care of the customers.
100%. And again, I will say this over and over again. I've been so fortunate in my career that I've had very good mentors, and I've seen so many good things, and I've seen so many things that I didn't like and didn't want. And, I'd always thought if I was ever given the chance, this is not the environment that I'd want to have for a team. But a gentleman named Denver Miller hired me in at Beck Oil with Corey Beck. Corey was a great mentor, kind of gave me my first introduction to the retail side of the industry where I'd always done wholesale. But Denver kind of took me along, and then at a certain point in his career, he had a great opportunity to move to the Yankovic Company. And I was so devastated. I was like, oh man, this guy has always been like rock, and I could bounce things off of him. And what am I going to do? And it's, as good as it was for him, it was also good for me because it forced me to take on some things on my own. But then about 6 months later, Denver called me up and says, hey, I have a position here that's open that might just be perfect for you. Would you be interested? And so we met, and it was a good position, and I took it there and got to work with him again. But again, I learned so many good things from him. So, and I've always tried to bring those along with me from career to career. And I think salesmen learn best from other salespeople. So you're right, working with other salespeople. But the team we have here is fantastic. We have so many different personalities, and everybody works very well together, and they're very supportive. And that's one thing I stress. I don't want to have that work environment where you're afraid to leave something on your desk because
hyper competitive. Yeah.
Another salesperson might steal it from you. We don't have that here. And you and Christy are a big reason for that too. You would not allow that culture here, but you've given us a culture of strength, support, very good operations department here that always is supportive of us.
Yeah, I mean, operations is the one that executes everything we promise.
Absolutely.
We can say anything, but if we don't have a strong operations team, Matt, Jared, Charlie, managers, those guys out in the field, the drivers in particular, which is the backbone of the operation, if they don't do their job, it doesn't matter what we say.
Right.
Because that's reality.
Yeah.
You said you were going to get it here on time in this time window. You said that the price was going to be this. You said on the administrative side, you had your house in order, but you failed.
They can make you a hero or a zero.
Yeah, you can have the most talented sales team in the world, but if you can't execute operationally, it doesn't matter.
They are our hidden gem. Our operations people, the dispatch people, our drivers are fantastic. And a lot of times your drivers are the ones seeing your customers more often than not. And our drivers are very good. And a lot of that is the training and the support that they've been given from right from the top.
Well, that's because I think we're not wasting our time, with infighting within the sales team and that business development component. So you can invest more time, with training in your operations team. So you understand that, hey, our drivers are squared away. Our ops team is squared away. Like, we're going to make whatever we promised, we're actually going to over deliver on that promise and take care of the customers. Because that's what it's about. Without customers, none of us have a job. So we got to take care of them. I think one of the things that we focus on so that there isn't a dramatic culture here in our company is, we remind people, when tensions get high and whatnot, that the enemy is outside the wire. We don't need to be fighting ourselves. Like, we can have honest discord, and you can be excited during that process as long as you're maintaining that respect level and you're working towards a solution. It's all good. You got to be fair. You got to be frank. You got to be concise. Get to the point. But none of this fighting. It's counterproductive to the mission.
100% counterproductive. Exactly.
So you bring in new salespeople. You make sure you have that cultural element. You have to make sure your ops team is squared away. As you're seeing a younger salesperson get out in the field more, and they're dealing with customers maybe for the first time. What do you have them focus on? Is it building a relationship? Is it product knowledge? Is it technical acumen? I mean, when you're telling someone that you need to start developing, this account relationship, what would you rather they focus on? Pricing, product, relationship?
I think it's personal relationships. People do business with people.
Yep.
Product knowledge, you'll always get there. And it's okay to not know something. Be honest with your customer and say, hey, I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you tomorrow. And then deliver on that. You're from the moment you meet a customer, you're being judged, you're being gauged. So when you say something, you have to follow through on that.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, that's in our core values, and the behaviors that associated to those core values is do what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Nobody twisted your arm and told you to promise that thing. But if you do promise that thing, you better charge through a wall to make sure that it happens, right? Like, we're not out there advocating that you make promises, but if you do, you have to follow through on it.
Yes.
Or else your word means nothing, and then your reputation's damaged.
Your customer has to be confident that they're working with the right person and that they're working with somebody that they can trust and count on, because things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. That's just the way it is. That's where we have this wonderful operations department that can help us. But at the same time, your salesman has to be available to take that tough phone call.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I got the voicemail from this guy and he's really upset. And I'm like, that's okay. You know what? This isn't a problem. This is an opportunity. This is where you're going to do the most good.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Do you have an example? I feel like there's a few, in my tenure here where we've actually made a mistake. Not a catastrophic mistake, nothing where there's, lost life or anything like that, but there's a mistake on an account level. And I feel like if you handle the mistake appropriately, it ultimately can be good in the long term. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's common you have that, a cross dump. It can ruin a customer's day.
Cross contamination, meaning, you drop gasoline in a diesel tank and now you got a nice mixture.
You put red diesel in a clear tank. So now you can't use that clear diesel in an on-road vehicle. And if he's got trucks waiting to go out, he's stuck.
Yeah.
And we've had those, but you know what? Our operations team jumps and gets it done. They get one truck out there to suck the tank out. They get another truck refilling that tank and get them back in action.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, those guys are so grateful. And when you've done that, you've earned a customer for life.
Yeah, we've actually had mistakes, with some big accounts. Again, not catastrophic mistakes, but you have a butt puckering moment because something went wrong. But instead of trying to brush it under the rug or misrepresent the level of the mistake, I feel like you just got to own it.
Absolutely, own up to it and work past it.
Own it. Communicate properly. Give them your plan of like, hey, this is how we're going to rectify this, and then moving forward, this is how we're going to ensure that, that mistake never happens again. Here's our contingency plan to make sure that thing doesn't happen. And if you jump and you take care of them, they get back to normal production levels or normal service levels. And then again, if you promise that, you got to come through on it. You can't say this will never happen again. And next Tuesday, you have another cross dump. Like you have to make sure you're working with your ops team, or maybe it was a communication breakdown, whatever the cause of the problem. Find a solution to it and make sure that you're taking care of that customer from there on out. I think that they'll forgive you, again, as long as it's not a catastrophic mistake. They understand that, we're all human. Mistakes happen. If you handle the mistake appropriately, get it corrected, get back to, doing things above board, all good.
There isn't any one of us that doesn't walk on air, that walks on water. Yeah. We're all capable of making mistakes.
Plenty of them.
But the most important thing is, how are you going to take care of that? What's your plan? And again, having that plan and calling the customer and say, this is what's going to happen. This truck's going to arrive. This truck's going to arrive. We're going to get you back going. It gives them a comfortability, but it also gives them a sense, I'm working with the right people.
Yeah.
And, I know when you first came in, you and Christy, things were a lot looser. You put a lot more
cowboy days.
Yeah. But, and we've grown because of that. But what you put together and what you built, we have this plan in place for when these types of things happen. And then we have a plan for the aftermath. We go back and we look at what happened. What can we do to change it so that it won't happen again? Or if it does happen again, how could we better handle it? What effect did it cause the customer? What caused that? And then how do we make it right by the customer?
And I think we do a good job of effectively communicating. I think we get a little bit better at it each year. Matt, preaches this constantly, communication. But, we do a really good job of cross-departmental communication so that, none of us operate in silos. Everything that we do affects, if not every department, various departments within the organization. So I think we constantly try to challenge ourselves to improve continuously, particularly on communication. Because if the ops team knows, what the pipeline looks like or what those new account expectations, you guys have worked, if not, weeks and months, years trying to get a customer's trust to say, okay, you know what? I will fill out the credit app. I will take a chance and do business with you. You want that first fill, that first delivery to go extremely well. And I think we've done better and better to communicate across departments to make sure that we're impress the customer and then keep up that level of performance all the way through, the entire lifetime of our relationship with that customer. And it doesn't happen if, sales is doing a really good job, but operations has no idea. Or even the administrative side can completely destroy a customer relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If your back of house is not in order and the purchase order numbers aren't on in there, or you don't put it in the appropriate portal, or the billing is delayed so they can't close their month, there's a lot of different things that just the administrative side can do to disrupt a relationship that you guys work so hard to establish.
It comes down to several things, but I'd say the most important is communication.
Yep.
I feel like we have such a transparent and open company because of what you brought to the company. I can pick up the phone and call anybody and get something taken care of or work with them on things. There's been many times where I've called Tim Christensen and said, "Hey, I've got this going on. Can you help us?"
Yeah.
And he jumps. He will bend over backwards, or he'll say, "Hey, you know what? How about we do it like this?" Just having that back and forth. Where I've worked at other companies where you are siloed. Sales is not allowed to call dispatch. Sales has to go through somebody that's so far removed. And then again, you've got all these people involved and it just slows the process. But we don't have that here. I can call anybody at any of our terminals and talk to them and say, "Hey, I was thinking about this," or "We're talking to this guy about this," or "How can we do this?" Getting people's input that are actually doing the job is huge. And then one of the things you've done, you've had other departments join our sales calls. What a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of that a long time ago. But, again, it gives them kind of an insight on what we've got going on, what we've got coming up, and then they can plan a little bit for it too. So the communication is it's a constant.
It removes the ambiguity, right? And usually when someone joins a sales call, it's because I'm talking to someone and they have a question, or maybe they have a preconceived notion. And I'm like, well, why don't you join Monday Morning Sales Huddle? You can ask that question to the team. I'm happy to answer on their behalf, but you might get a better, more appropriate answer if you actually ask them, or if you have this opinion. And I know that maybe there's not a lot of credibility to that opinion. Again, why don't you join the sales team and listen in, and you get to see hey, here are the things that are coming on board. Here's the pipeline that we're establishing. Here are the existing accounts that we need to make sure hey, this customer's window is switching from this time to this time. Have we communicated that to operations to make sure that delivery gets there? There's a lot of information that we get through in a really short period of time. So yeah, if they have questions or concerns, invite them to the meeting.
Right.
It quiets the peanut gallery if there are preconceived notions, or it answers the question that they had, as opposed to them, running around, trying to have 10 separate conversations. You don't even necessarily have to join the entire meeting if you don't have to. Just join it, ask the question, get the information you're looking for, and then you can jump. Easy as that. So I'm happy when we have various departments on a call. As much as I love, specified calls, but if there's a reason for it, get them involved. Yeah. And get that cross-departmental communication going. Is there a particular customer or customer segment, because we work with a wide variety of businesses? Just the reality is that, our products are pretty much needed for any type of industry out there. Is there one in particular that you like to work with?
Yeah. MP Materials.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about why?
They have a very unique industry, but not only do we work with them on the fuel side, but we also work with them on lubricants. There's always opportunities for new sales. They do so many different things that we have and we sell. And the people out there, they have this great group of people that has years and years of experience. And a lot of times I'm constantly learning, and I try to learn something new every day. If I'm lucky, I learn 2 things every day, but I don't know it all. And a lot of times, if we're working with a mine and they've got something unique going on, I can call my contacts over there and say, "John, what can you tell me about this? Do you guys have this? Have you ever seen this? Have you ever had experience with this?" And they're so open and so very willing to share their knowledge with me. So they're just very enjoyable to work with.
It's a pretty exciting account. I mean, MP is Rare Earth Minerals, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And their headquarters is right across the street here, downtown Summerlin. I had no idea. I knew Win was on the side of the building, but when you drive around the other way, you got MP right up there on the top floor. So a unique company, no doubt, particularly as an American company. And I'm glad that we get to do, some business with them. We don't do all their business. Not looking to do all their business, but happy to take care of them, in the little way that we do.
And again, that's another one where we've had issues. They've called us and said, "Hey, we screwed up. We're not going to make it. We need this. Can you get us?" And our operations people have stepped up.
Yeah.
Damon down in Hesperia, super guy. I wish we could clone him and have 10 a.m.
Yeah.
He always takes good care of them and makes us look good, and the kind of relationship we should have with our customers.
And I talked to Matt about that, about building flexibility into the operation. Like, obviously you've got, labor goals, budgetary goals, all that, right? You want to run a tight ship, but you also want to build a little bit of flexibility in there, because you don't know if you're going to get a call in the middle of the night that you have to go fuel that locomotive. Or you don't know if you have a 911 where the customer's like, "Hey, I thought I had this stock in my warehouse. Turns out I don't, and I need 3 barrels of XYZ. or I'm going to have to shut down production. And if we have a little bit of built-in flexibility, obviously you don't want guys just sitting around the warehouse waiting for a call that may or may not come. But if you have a little bit of flexibility built in the operation, it allows you to put the cape on and save the day. Not every day, but on those rare occurrences, it feels nice to be like, pick up the phone and go, I absolutely can take care of you for that. Even if it's something that we don't normally do for them.
Yeah.
Why not? It's a problem that they need solved. And if we have the capabilities to solve it, do it. I think that generates value in the relationship. We've seen a lot of competitors that will just sell on price. They'll enter into a market and they want to undercut price. And I think both of us preach to the rest of the team that you have to be competitive with price. Call it a relevant range. There's a low end of the price scale, a high end of the price scale. You definitely need to be competitive within that range. But do you think it's a good idea to just sell on price?
You sell on price, you're going to lose on price. It's always going to be part of the equation, right? But what else can you bring to the table? What can you do to make that person's job easier, to make that company run more efficiently, to bring them an extra benefit to them? And we do a great job of that. We've got some people on the sales team that are just wonderful at that. And I'm encouraging them, and they're very good about that, about sharing their knowledge with the rest of the team and even the other departments,
Yeah. Jared's a great example.
Yes.
Our guy in the north, shout out to Jared. He spends as much time doing infrastructure projects now to support the mines because, they're having problems getting equipment set up. And that's not our bread and butter. We do a lot with equipment, but ultimately the equipment's there just so that our products and our services actually can get to the customer. It's not his core responsibility, but he's more than happy to do it because it's what the customer needs. And, he wants to serve that customer. If they're going through more product than they thought and they need some infrastructure on site, he's happy to do it. And we've got another guy on the team that, not only you, but Jared advocated for. Can you talk a little bit about Mr. Straight?
Yes.
And what he brings to the table to demonstrate value to the relationship, as opposed to just going in there and trying to win everybody on price, which is really, that's not our angle. We're not trying to do that. We want to be competitive with price, but I think that we want to generate more value than per gallon cost savings.
Chuck is an engineer, holds an engineering in both lubricants and reliability. But aside from that, he's got this great personality, a great way of looking at things. He's got years and years of experience that he's very open about and very willing to share. And he'll go in and talk to a customer and say, what are you doing about this? And how do you guys do this? And he starts talking to them, and all of a sudden they start opening up because it's tough. You basically have 5 to 10 minutes when you walk into a new customer to gain their trust, to get a read on how they are, where they're at, and get them to open up and start talking to you. And once he starts talking about some of these things, it's like, yeah, we're having those issues. We're going through that right now. And boy, all of a sudden the light turns on, and where he said, I've got 10 minutes for you, 2.5 hours later, you're still sitting there talking to him.
Yeah.
So Chuck brings this wealth of knowledge to the table, but also this openness and the ability to kind of bring things out in people and get them to start talking to you. And I'm so very grateful to have him on the team. And he's been so open and giving to his teammates. We started doing training classes for the teammates, not only on products, but how to present things and what else you can bring to the table. Because again, price is always going to be part of the equation, right?
Yeah.
But what else do you bring to the table? What makes you unique? Why should somebody work with you as opposed to somebody else? Because honestly, change is tough. Change is scary. Change is intrusive. People these days we're all stressed for time. And the last thing you want to do is to take more time to change vendors. That means filling out credit apps, learning new people, getting rid of the existing product, bringing in new products. It's very intrusive to somebody. There has to be a good reason to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for any customer out there to go through, and change a vendor. And I think one of the things that we do, especially early in the process, because like you said, you have a short, finite amount of time to go through everything that you just mentioned and really to establish credibility. I feel like once you establish credibility, you can start to demonstrate value. And then all of a sudden that 5 to 10 minute window turns into a 2 to 4 hour window. And by the end of it, they go, I'm open to potentially changing vendors. And by the end of that process, I hope that I have a partner. And that's what we're really trying to do as we get through that early stage is we want to get out of this vendor terminology and demonstrate to you that we're a partner in this.
Right.
That we're not just selling you oil. Anybody can sell you oil.
I could drop a drum off.
And you might be able to find it cheaper, but how do you handle that oil when it actually gets to that industrial environment or that mining environment, right? And if we have some knowledge and some know-how on the staff and we can communicate that to the customer base so that they can get, longer lifetime out of their equipment and handle those products appropriately, you're demonstrating value. Or a guy like Chuck, Chuck's far smarter than me, but he does a really good job of taking very technical, complicated things and breaking it down to layman's terms. And I feel like when he gets on site with these guys, some of the guys are just as technically capable as Chuck, but some are maybe a little bit more entry level from an engineering standpoint. And I think, he tries to translate that knowledge even to the customers, employees, as opposed to just our own. Like, obviously he's training the rest of the sales team with you, but when he gets out, he's really trying to educate the customers, and he breaks it down in the layman's terms to where you can understand, where you're like, okay, this isn't just a vendor. This guy's actually trying to create value for our business, not just sell me products. And, I couldn't be happier to have him on the team. Couldn't be happier to have you on the team. Before we end, because we talk a lot about this, what's one of the favorite comedy movies that you like?
Oh boy, it's got to be Step Brothers.
I love Step Brothers.
Yeah, the family, we do nothing but throw Step Brothers quotes back and forth when we get together. It's hilarious to sit there and just listen to us. Or somebody will start a group text and all of a sudden you're fixing the drywall, or but Dad, it's Shark Week. All these classics from that movie. For some reason, we all just kind of loved that movie and fell into it.
I got a funny story about that. I actually went and saw that movie in theaters. My aunt raised me. And it's not that she's a nun, but, she doesn't curse a lot. She's not out there watching movies with a ton of nudity in it. She's not a, big drinker or smoker. So we go to this movie, Step Brothers, because I'm like, oh, it's Will Ferrell. It's going to be funny. Talladega Nights is great. We love Will Ferrell. So I go to that with my aunt, and in particular, when you get to the drum sequence,
oh my God,
I'm like looking over at her and she's looking at me and we're just dying laughing. It was totally inappropriate to be sitting there with like my older aunt, but we had a blast in the theater and we still watch it to this day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Probably the only movie like that I'll watch it.
It's old.
Oh,
really.
It's amazing. Well, Ron, did we just become best friends?
Do you want to go do karate in the garage?
Yes. I appreciate you doing this. I hope to have you back on. I'd love to get Chuck on here too, to talk about things that are far beyond my technical acumen.
One more shout out that I wanted to give, Matt Morosco, huge addition to the team, but also we were talking about communication. Matt invited me to join the operations calls, and I learned a lot and was able to answer some questions, but at the same time, kind of learn some of the challenges that they have. And I think it also helps me to take that back to the sales team and say, hey guys, think about this, or we need to do this, or we need to look at doing these things, or think about these things when you're looking at an account.
Yep.
And it's helped the sales team grow because of it. So again, I'm very appreciative of that. We got the guys in Kingman that are awesome. Again, years of experience.
Uncle Charlie.
Jared in the north. Exactly. Uncle Charlie, Jared in the north, Damon down in Hesperia. We've got just this wonderful team, this wonderful crew. And I'm very grateful for you for giving us all these great resources, because, as a salesperson, having this and having these things to go in and say to people, I've got this guy here, I've got this guy here. Any one of us are available to you. And it helps to bring business in. Well,
business is a team sport. I appreciate you saying that. I'm sure Matt will appreciate that too. And he's a unique bird. I mean, he's rare because he's been there and seen it. I mean, there's nothing he's going to see in the field that he's not familiar with. I mean, from driving, dispatching, rail, terminals, pipe, it doesn't matter. He's been there and he's seen it all, but he's also extremely capable and computer savvy. So when he's digging into data, looking for actionable information, he's totally self-sufficient in that. Like, he's not bogging down various departments, asking for reports or formatting. He just gets it done on his own. But he also spent a lot of time in sales himself. He was dealing direct, from big oil with, the power generation sector and the mining sector. So I think that he has that empathy from a sales, respect, where he's like, hey, our operations teams needs to fulfill. Like, we have to execute. You have no idea how hard it is to get out there and establish that trust and generate that value, just to have the opportunity to make that delivery and give them the product. So we can't screw it up on the back end, because like our sales team has worked so hard because he's done it.
Right.
And there's a lot of guys in operations that have that I would say, sales point of view. And it's just great to see everything working together. Because like I said, it's a team sport. None of us are going to win or fail. We rely on each other, and we have to communicate.
Right.
It's been a fun 8 years being a part of it. I'm looking forward to the next 8 or the next 80, whatever it is. And I think we have a fun and amazing team here.
We do. We have a great support system, and especially for some of the newer sales guys to come in and get out and talk to people or talk to the drivers, and the drivers say, hey, you know what? I saw these guys. You should go talk to them. Or, hey, I think this guy might be interested or might be somebody you could work with.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a team environment, and we definitely have a team here. Probably the best team I've ever worked with.
I'd put it up against anybody in the industry.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey, Ron, thanks. I appreciate you doing this.
Yes, thank you. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to Jobbers, American Energy. If today's episode gave you a new perspective or reminded you why this work matters, leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. It really does help support the show. For more episodes and resources, visit jobberspodcast.com. Until next time.